Laura and I like to watch these movies. When I was growing up, my grandmother always read Agatha Christie books, and so I got to where I was reading them. My favorite one was The Death on the Nile. They've made at least 3 movies now that I know of. But, you know, they try to build up all the intrigue, and it just seems like things fall into place perfectly. And then, of course, in the end, what's his name, Perot, he ends up solving the case. And it's just, imagine this case. Is it simply chance that all of this has happened? Or is God's hand involved in it? Some people view life as a gamble, and they're more willing to take chances. You know people who are willing to take more chances than others, and others have more of a conservative volition, and they sort of weigh every choice. But we have in the book of Esther a series of decisions that are made that really have eternal consequences. And I think that it's no different today. The decisions that we make have eternal consequences. I have seen families who have left the church and their children, when they could have been raised in the church, whole family's gone just because of decisions that people have made. I've seen others who brought their children, and their children brought their children. I know members of the Lord's church that have been members of the church going back 8 generations. Isn't that amazing? They did a study one time on Jonathan Edwards, his descendants, and a descendant of a just everyday run-of-the-mill crook from his own town. And it's amazing how someone who decides that they're going to be faithful to God can change families for generations upon generations. I've known people who have struggled with abuse, whether it be physical abuse or whether it be sexual abuse or whether it be drug abuse. It doesn't matter. Have you ever noticed that so many times their children end up growing up and doing the same thing? When Elizabeth and Jonathan were just little, I don't know how old they would have been in 2011. Laura, you have any idea? Were you 7 or 8 in 2011? 21, okay. But I had read that, you know, if one parent will go to a place of higher learning, other than just high school, the likelihood that their children will graduate from a school of higher learning jumps up to 85%. That's just one parent. And then it's almost 100% if both parents did. And so I joined school because I'm thinking of the future. I think of Abraham, who planted a terebinth tree in his backyard. They're only good for shade. The only problem is they take about 50 or 60 years to grow. You see, he planted a tree that he would never enjoy the shade under, but he knew his children would. And here then, it falls into Esther's lap. A decision. What is going to be done? And this decision is not only life and death for her, but for all of the generations of the faithful Jews that lived during that time. And so is life a game of chance, or is God involved? Here, I wanted to show you something. This is the game called 9 Men's Morris. You ever heard of it? Well, that means you haven't played it then, right? Here it is. I ordered the cheapest version off Amazon that I could. You have this same thing that's behind me, and you have all these little pieces here. And I got this. I waited all day for Laura to get home because I was going to whip her real quick in this game. We got it out there. I mean, within seconds, she had whipped me. Couldn't beat her. It's amazing. This game right here, 9 Men's Morris, this game is ancient. Some people believe that this was the game that was played at the foot of the cross. I don't really think that because the Bible seems to indicate that there was dice involved at the game. There is no dice in 9 Men's Morris, but this these games were played right there in Jerusalem. It was played by the Romans. As a matter of fact, Morris probably comes from a Latin word, morellus, which means game, and the 9 men indicate soldiers. And so soldiers played this game. If you go to, it's on this. If you go to Israel today, there's a stone right there, and look that's from 2,000 years ago. When Jesus walked on the earth, somebody chiseled that right there into a rock. You see it? I don't know if you guys can see that back there or not. Looks a little flooded, but you got it, Laura? You know what? I bet I can see it if I do this. Oh, that's amazing. So here you have this game of 9 men Morris. Is that what Haman was doing? I don't think it was. Let me take you to this one. Okay. How many raise sheep? Anybody here? Laura used to raise sheep. You ever eat any sheep knuckles, Laura? What do you do with the sheep knuckles? Oh, well, you missed out, man. Nothing funner than sheep knuckles. Sheep knuckles is the ancient dice. These ancient die have been found all over the world for around 5,000 years. And I don't know if you can see them very well, but you see how they have sort of natural grooves on them? And so one groove is a 1, one groove represents a 2, you flip it over, all these grooves represent certain numbers. Now these ones right here are iron knuckle bones. I'd hate to see that sheep. But here, somebody made these, and you see the one edge is flat, and so they take a little die, and they would put a 3 or a 4 or however many numbers they wanted to indicate on their dice. And this goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks. They were used by the ancient world to cast lots. Now, casting lots was something that was very familiar to the ancient world. We see it in the Old Testament. We understand unum and thunum. We understand that process. But the casting of lots was involved in basically astrology. These people, these magicians, these astrologers, these diviners, they would use the die and they would cast it in such a way that they could tell the future, or they could see in their stars something that was foreboding or something that was joyous. They were, I think maybe we would call them today, do you ever hear the word anymore, clairvoyant? Someone talking about someone who was clairvoyant. And so you had these clairvoyants who would use this, but it was very, very common amongst the astrologers to use this. And some have suggested that Haman probably used the knuckle bones. He rolled the old knuckle bones, and that's how he came up with the date of the 13th of Adar. But I don't know. I don't think so. Here's another game. You ever heard of this game? The Royal Game of See that there? Well, this thing is one of the oldest games there's ever been. As a matter of fact, if you follow the British Museum, which Laura's going to take me to one of these days, I keep asking. If you follow the British Museum, you'll find out that not too many years ago, Irving Finkel, if you Google him, he reminds you of Dumbledore or a Gandalf type character. He found an ancient cuneiform. It's in the British Museum. And the rules for this game, the Royal Game of were there. And so now you can buy this game, which I did. Okay. Y'all see this? And here are the pieces. Haven't even been opened yet. I was going to play with Laura, but when she beat me in the other one, I left this one in the box. But in this game, there are 4 dice. Okay? See if I can get this open. These 4 dice are in the shape of a triangle. A triangle with a white dot on the top. You can probably see that in these pictures here, but you probably can't see the white dot. And so when they fall, whatever side it falls on, you know the number. Okay? And so in this royal game of there is dice that are involved. Is this the game that Haman played? I'm messing up now. So, what you have here is, I wish I had a thing. You start on this side. You start on this side. One player does, and the other player starts at the top, and you roll the dice, and you have these pieces right here. Okay? And they go down the side, and if you roll on the other ones, you knock his off and you win. Okay? This game was played in palaces amongst the elite for thousands of years. The Greeks played it. The Persians played it. The Romans played it. But go all the way back, the Samaritans played it. Where have you heard the name by the way? Abraham was from the of Chaldees. Long before Abraham, this game was being played with dice and other pieces. And so the reason I keep going ahead on this is because we have two different computers. Here then, Haman. Who is Haman? Well, he's that guy that's hung up there, right? Haman was an astrologer. How do I know that? Well, I'm not sure. The Jewish encyclopedia here, I've quoted, says Haman was an astrologer, and when he was about to fix the time for the massacre of the Jews, he first cast lots to ascertain which was the most auspicious day of the week for that purpose. And so tradition says that he was an astrologer. And I can't tell you that for sure. All I can do is tell you that tradition indicates that that is the case. Now, one thing we do know is that in Persia, he would have worshipped certain gods. Here, I want you to see this. Can you see this? Monday, Saturday, Thursday. You go through here, Mars, the sun, Venus, Mercury, this astrological star. In this game, let me go back here. In this game, it's the same game of but there are 24 squares. Now, I wish you could see this better. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You see that? Now, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's see what's back here. Well, we've already hung him, right? So let's move on. More than 100 boards of this family are known from ancient sites in Iraq, Iran, Israel, Syria, Lebanon, Turkey, Cyprus, Egypt, Crete. And astonishingly, a version of this game of 20 squares was played by the Jewish population of Kochi, India until the 1950s. Now, I'm saying all this because the ancient Romans, here, this Mars, they saw the red planet and thought of blood and battle. And cultures all around the world envisioned Mars differently. In Greek mythology, it was known as Ares. While the Babylonians, this gets us to where we are, the Babylonians referred to it as Nergal. Now, have you ever heard of the god Nergal? No? Well, each of these names, they're linked to themes of war and fire and destruction. Nergal was the Babylonian king of utter desolation and destruction. Now, you might be wondering, where in the world am I going with this, okay? Yeah, I'm getting these looks. Here's Nergal. By the way, that's the two lions at the gates of ancient Nineveh, okay? You know who that is? That's Nergal, okay? Anyone who passes here, right? One of those kind of things. Well, these 7 pieces that I showed you right here, these 7 pieces to this game, the round ones, they correspond to these right here. All right? I'm building my case. Tearing my case up. So here is this case, all right? The 7 pieces represented 7 planets. You remember these men that were counselors to the king of Persia, the Bible tells us Daniel was one of them. They were men who studied astrology. Now, by the way, I'm not going to go through it tonight, but there's a difference between astronomy and astrology, okay? And so here, these astrologists, they were tied into the stars. We know the ancient world knew so much more about the stars than the average person today does. We understand that. And so this 24-piece game of the world game of Ur, see, instead of this, it has 24. This was the astrological board. Okay? Are you following me now? Here is a picture of it. All right? So, let me see if I can build this for you now. And I won't keep you much longer. If this is the game that Haman is playing, and he rolls his dice, and these pieces right here represent these guys. Mars is Nargil, and you've got gods of love, you've got gods of the sun, you've got gods of everything, gods of the sea. One of them represents the god of destruction and desolation. So what piece do you think he'll pick? He'll pick the Nargil piece. And he casts it on that board of 12. Let me go back here. I got one more thing to tell you. This right here, this is that long astrological piece of the board. Guess where that was found, by the way? At the bottom of that thing. Chiseled. At the bottom of a statue of Nargil. That's interesting, isn't it? Now he rolls his dice. The die is cast, right? I feel Shakespearean. And it rolls through each month. The Babylonians had 12 months, and it rolls, and the numbers keep going. And it goes all the way out here, the last month, which is the month of Adar. And if he's got Nargil's piece in his hand, and it landed on the month of Adar, do you know what day every month Nargil was celebrated and offerings were made to him? Can you guess? The 13th day of the month of Adar. Now, could you imagine if the fate of all the Jews was left up to a game like this? And I don't know that this was the game they played. Sure is interesting, though, isn't it? But if it was just left up to these little dice, the dice, and I know people who live that way. Boy, things could go a whole bunch of different ways, couldn't they? But when God has his hand on it, it doesn't matter what happens. Because the day that Haman thought he would destroy all of these people, it backfired on him. And the very gallows that he had made to destroy those Jews he hated, he was hung from. By the way, let me give this picture of him hanging. Did you see that one? That picture I put there, that's 400 years old, by the way. But the word actually means hung to or hung on a post. And so the fact of the matter is, Haman was probably impaled, which is a very graphic scene, isn't it? I wanted to tell you that right before I talked about food. I'll end my lesson tonight with food. Today, on Purim, when it's celebrated, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. I've been thinking about these cookies ever since I preached 2 weeks ago. But they make these Hamantasken. Okay? Remember when Grandma used to make all those lovely Hamantaskens for you around springtime? Well, these pastries are called Haman's ears. You see, that's the Yiddish word, Hamantasken. Haman's ears. And my blessed wife today made, how many of these did you make? 50 of these Hamantaskens. This one has strawberry preserves, and this one has blackberry preserves. And we got a bucket load of them back there, and she's going to go down and get some stuff. Take them home. These are Jewish cookies, all right? Eat as many as you can. Don't feel guilty, but if you don't eat them, I'll probably go into a diabetic coma tonight. So if you can live with that, leave them. But what do they look like? You see it here? Laura, yours doesn't look like that one. Pretty close, though. What do they look like? You remember that game piece I was showing you? They look exactly like the dice. And so children eat Haman's ears every year. I wanted to end with this verse. Proverbs 16:33. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. The lot is cast in the lap, but the Lord, his hand is behind it. So even if we rely on the lot, even if we rely on casting the dice, God's hand's behind it. We've seen this through the Bible. You remember Gideon who set out the fleece? You remember the number of people who have questioned God? The fact of the matter is, God works in the lives of people today. And I want you to remember that. And let's, when we read the book of Esther, remember his providence in all of this. Tonight, if you have a need, we want to encourage you to come forward. If you've fallen away, we want you to come back to us. Please stand as we sing.